Hey guys, my name is Sandy. I'm a licensed realtor here in the Central Florida area. Today I want to do a video for you that's going to be entitled, Is 2024 a good time to buy a home? Should I be buying a home in 2024? Interest rates are high, we're in an election year, all kind of things is going crazy, inflation is up, everything is up. Should I just continue to rent and ride the market out, or should I even consider buying a home? What are we doing? All right. So let's talk about this, right? And I don't want to come from the perspective of course you should buy a home. I don't want to do that. I want to think about each person's individual needs and wants and, what is going to make them happy. Now, obviously, we know everyone has to live somewhere, right? Maybe you're living with your relatives right now, with your family. Maybe you have a roommate, or maybe you're just renting outright, right? But you don't own anything as yet. And there's, you don't have to rush to buy, because you can always, rent. Maybe your rent is lower than what you'd pay for mortgage. Maybe you're feeling that, well, I can't afford these kind of mortgage payments, whatever the situation is, right? So you got to really think this thing through. So if I'm thinking of buying, should I buy now, or should I probably wait until 2025? Maybe interest rate may come down. Nobody knows, right? Maybe the prices might start coming down. Nobody knows. These are definitely things that we would need to think about. But what I want you to think about more is, so I have to live somewhere, and in order for me to live somewhere, unless I'm living for free, where I'm still living with my parents or they're not really charging me any money, or I'm living with relatives, or I'm not really paying rent, then I could understand that. But if you're paying rent, you gotta look at, okay, so whether I buy in 2024, 2025, or whenever it is I buy a home, the fact is I'm still going to have to live somewhere, and the fact is I'm going to have to be paying some kind of monthly housing payment, right? So what is my monthly housing payment? I remember my son who bought a house now, but he was looking to rent, right? He had to graduate college, he's now working, he's looking to rent, and I'm telling him, hey, don't rent, just stay with me, save some money, and then you'll buy a house. Because obviously I'm a realtor, I'm going to say this, I do real estate investment as well. And he's like, no, mom, because I want to live in Winter Park, and there's luxury apartments there, and, they have all these amenities, and that's what I want, and I don't want to stay here. I want to go do that, right? I'm like, all right, when kids are grown, there's nothing you could do. I'm like, say, okay, go ahead and do that. He did that. I went to the apartment. He was paying $2,200 a month, one-bedroom apartment, very small, but they do have all the amenities, the swimming pool, tennis court, all kind of craziness, valet parking, whatever it is, all this great stuff. So one day I said to him, I'm like, Matthew, you're paying $2,200 a month for rent. What's that getting you? You're getting all the luxurious stuff here, but are you making any headway anywhere? Like, you're just paying the rent. Like, at the end of the day, you live here for 5 years, you pay the rent, you have nothing to show for it. What are we doing? So he finally decided to maybe look up buying a home, right? So I'm showing him all these homes, and he's comparing it back to the amenities he has in his apartment and all that stuff. And I told him, I said, your landlord is going to be happy hearing you say all this stuff. Because you're like, no, I don't want that because they don't have this amenity, and I don't want that one because it doesn't have that amenity. I said, but just remember, you're at a starting point. So you're starting from here, but you're not going to stay here all the time. Like, whatever your starter home is, that's not going to be your forever home, because he has this word forever. Everything's a forever thing for him. So he's like, oh, no, it's not going to be my forever home, but they're not offering all the stuff that the apartment is offering. And, we're going back and forth with this over a course of a few months, until he finally came to me one day. I was shocked. And he's like, all right, mom. All right. I'll buy a home. But I want a new house. I don't want a whole house, So I went through all this stuff. And I'm saying all this thing to say, it depends upon what you're looking to do and what your priorities are. Maybe you're, maybe you are living with other people, and you're a roommate, you have other roommates, and maybe you're like, well, I don't know if I should buy a home. But what I will tell you is, since we have to live somewhere no matter what, that's what I've always said, since we have to live somewhere no matter what, and if you're living by yourself and you're paying rent, then you got to look into, okay, I'm paying this much for rent. If I was to buy a house, how much should that be? Right? How much do I qualify for? Do I even qualify to buy a home? So these are some things to consider. Oh my gosh, let me talk to a lender. Let's see if I qualify. What do I qualify for? With my current credit score, my current income, what do I qualify for? And if I don't qualify to buy a home right now, what would it take for me to buy a home, and how long will it take? And then how much longer would I have to stay here and keep paying rent before I could purchase a property? Now, you could also think about buying a multifamily home. I know that's not popular in the Central Florida area, but there are a few homes, even in our area in Central Florida, where you could buy a duplicate, where you have 2 homes together, side by side, or 3 homes together, like three different units on the same properties. You could buy a 2-family, 3-family. This is more famous in New York. Because my first purchase was a 4-family property, right? Because I was in New York, that's more frequent there. But I do have homes, 2-family homes there, where you could buy the home, you live in one side, or you rent the other side. Another thing you could do is if you were to purchase a home and you're like, I can't afford all this mortgage by myself, you could purchase a home and you could have roommates. So and I have had people that have bought townhomes or condos and say, yeah, I'm living with 2 other roommates, so when I buy the home, they're all gonna come and we're gonna just they're gonna pay me rent, and that's how I'm gonna cover the mortgage. Because let's look at it at the end. Who are buying homes right now? Think about that. Who are buying homes and who are building these rental apartments right now? In Orlando alone, in our area, Central Florida, I'm gonna say, there's so many new construction apartment complexes coming up. When I first moved there in 2012, there's no such thing. I used to be like, well, don't they have an apartment complex? Because it didn't exist. Now, including the one that my son moved to in Winter Park, all these big apartment complexes are arriving. Not only are they arriving, but they're giving you all these amenities, the tennis court, the pool, pickleball court, a game room, a billiard room, a little computer room, and all these different stuff that they're offering in these. But the fact of the matter is they're still apartments and you're still paying rent. What if you were to just go ahead and buy a property or buy a home, and you could have your own amenities in your own home? Like you may have one room that's a game room, or maybe you're in a complex that do offer some of those amenities. But don't get caught up in these rental apartments that the rent is crazy high, some of them higher than what you'd be paying for mortgage. And don't get caught up with all the amenities, like, oh, I could go to the pool, I could go this. Because the fact of the matter is, and the landlords already know this, maybe 20%, if that much, of the entire complex will use the facilities. It's just there for the facade. It's just there to say, oh yeah, I'm living in this complex and they have all these different amenities. But are you really using them though? Are they really benefiting you? All these different amenities that it has, are you really using it? Or are you only using it every now and again if you have guests over, family over, or something? Wouldn't that be the same thing as buying your own home or your own townhome or condo, whatever it is, buying your own property, and then when you go on vacation, you use whatever the resort is offering as amenities? Or maybe you go to a gym that already offer all those amenities. Some gym have saunas and whirlpool and spas and all this great stuff. So are you making these apartment complex owners happy by saying, oh, wow, they have all these amenities, I gotta go live in one? Because the fact of the matter is, the way we live, even people that have a pool at their home, most people, I'm gonna dare say 70% of people that have a pool in their home do not go in that pool every day. Nor do they go in the pool every week. Sometimes the pool is out there and they're like, oh my God, I haven't been out there in a minute, right? So don't get caught up with the amenities is the point. Because the amenities doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use them all the time, or they're going to benefit you, or the rent that you're paying really equalizes all these amenities that you have. Because that's why if you look at any resort, any development, whether it's owned or rented, you will see that the resort area is never big enough to fit everybody that lives in the complex, right? So if you had a complex that had, let's say it had 300 members, 300 people that live there, and they have the amenity area, if all 300 people decide to use the amenity area in any one day, it would not accommodate them. But guess what? They know that nobody's going to do that. They know that there's no way everybody is going to choose to use the amenity at that time. So they make the amenities available knowing only a fraction of the people is going to be able to enjoy the amenity. So don't get caught up with that. So what I'm going to say, my advice, of course, is going to be, you should always want to buy something, own something of your own. That way you don't have to be caught up with what the lease says and you're breaking the lease, and you can't paint the walls the way you want to paint it, or you can't do this and you can't do that, right? Because it's renting and the landlord, as they say. So instead, and I know what you're going to tell me, I already know this. Well, Sandy, the HOA does the same thing. I own the HOA and I got to follow the HOA rules, which is fine, but you own. Right? So you could sell it and make money from it. Or you could come out and you could rent it to somebody and go live someplace else. You could never fail in housing, all right, I know what you're going to say too. You're going to say, well, what about that market crash in 2008, 2009? Let's talk about it. I experienced this. I had properties during this time. And 2008, 2009, a lot of people lose their property. And my thing was always, shouldn't we find a way for you to stay in the property? Let's do a loan modification. Because at that time, the banks were doing loan modification where they would modify the loan and lower your payment. And don't worry about trying to pay off a 30-year mortgage. Very few people pay off a 30-year mortgage. The point in buying a property is, what is the monthly payment and can I afford it? As long as I can afford the monthly payment, then we're good. Because guess what? The property will appreciate whether the market sink and 2008, 2009, the market crash. Today, the market is crazy expensive. You see what I'm saying? And I lived through both. I'm probably aging myself, but I lived through both. And I had a townhome in Florida. At the time I lived in New York during the crash. I had a townhome in Florida. I bought it in 2007 for $240,000. 2009, I'm in Florida on vacation. The townhomes in that complex was selling for $99,000, guys. $99,000. But I did a loan modification and the bank forgave me of some of the loan that was already on there and lowered my monthly payment so I'll be able to keep it. And I kept it until I sold it and it doubled back in value, right? So that's what you got to look at. Look at the monthly payment. Don't say, there were so many people, oh my gosh, like I'm so upset right now. There's so many people that could have saved their home back in 2008 and 2009. And I know they could because I was working alongside them. I was working with so much different banks. Our job was to go out and talk with the homeowner and see how the bank could help them. And a lot of them did not want to take the help because they were listening to their friends saying, oh my God, the house is upside down. You may as well get rid of it. No, you don't. Because guess what? Most of those people today can't even buy a home. They can't afford to buy a home anymore because they were in a home that, however way they got in the home, it was their home. And at that time, all they had to do was work with the bank. A lot of banks was working alongside homeowners, and my bank was Chase. And every time I called them, right, I was trying to do a loan modification on the townhome where I'm telling you about. Every time I call them, oh, we didn't get your paperwork. Okay, this is missing. It's an incomplete file. Okay, your file was denied. Oh, listen, it took me a good 6 months to get this thing done. But when I stood the course, and when it was done, I owned my townhome. The monthly payment went down low. They forgave me some of the mortgage, so the mortgage was split in half. So half of the loan was gone. They forgave half of the loan. Yes, this was happening in 08 and 09. But people didn't want to do that. All people were saying was, the mortgage is too expensive. I can't pay the mortgage. The house is on the water. I'm going to go. No. Guess who was buying that time? Investors. Investors were buying all the properties that people were walking away from, talking about it's upside down, I don't want to do it, and damaging the property, taking out the acreage on the property, just demolishing the properties, then leaving as if the property had anything to do with what's going on. The investors bought them, they fixed them, they kept them, and now they're worth so much. So when you have the privilege of owning a property or owning a home, don't be so ready to give it up. If you're behind on your mortgage, the banks will work with you, guys. I'm telling you, the banks don't want it back. The banks are the one that spent all that money to give you that loan. And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, who suffered the most from the market crash back in 08, 09, and 2010? Who suffered the most? It wasn't the homeowners that suffered the most. Yes, people were displaced, and yes, people had to go, they gave up their home because they didn't want to fight for it. But guess who suffered the most? The banks who gave you the money to buy the property. They gave you the money. That's the only reason why you have it, and that's why you owe a loan. So all these loans was on the bank. No, I'm not taking up for the bank, but the bank was who suffered the most. Some banks went out of business, right? Some banks were never heard of ever again. Bankruptcy, all kind of stuff, because they didn't have the money. The money was loaned out to you. The bank also had to repay to the secondary market. That wasn't working. Everything was crashing. So my advice is going to be, in all this thing I'm talking about, if you're wondering, should I buy a home in 2024? If you can afford to buy any real estate in 2024, do it. Because guess what? If the interest rate is a little bit high, you can always refinance when they came down. I have another example. For me, I bought a home when the interest rates were just going crazy, right? When I went to build a home, when I went on the contract, interest rates were low, 2 to 4%. We're going through, I think this was in 2021 or something. But it took them a year and a half to build this home because COVID happened and everything was short and all kind of craziness. When it was time for me to close on the home, interest rate was at like, I don't know, 7.5 or something, or near 8. Like, it was really crazy. And it was an investment. I built it to rent it. So now this is an investment. So guess what my interest rate was, guys? 10%. My interest rate was 10%. I rented it. The rent was able to cover the mortgage. I'm like, fine, I'm good with that. As long as my monthly payment can be covered, my debt monthly payment can be covered, I'm good. So I bought it, I rented it. 2 years later, I refinanced it. Now I'm paying $2,000 less per month on that same property, right? But if I just walked away and be like, no, I wouldn't be paying this lower monthly payment right now. And number one. And number two, I wouldn't have the appreciation I got. The property appreciated like so much over the course of 2 years. So what I'm saying to you is, if you want to start to build generational wealth, if you want to start owning, then it doesn't matter what the market is doing, because there's always going to be a good deal in every single market. Maybe you need to save more. Maybe you're like, you know what, let me rent for a while. I need to save some more money because, you know, I don't want to have a big mortgage. And I can understand that. But what I don't want you to get caught up with is the apartment complexes that they're building with all these amenities. I don't want you to get caught up in going to rent those. I don't want you to get caught up in, well, I'm renting this fabulous house right now and I have this, and I'm paying $2,500 a month. If I go get a mortgage, I'm going to have to pay $2,900 a month and I'm not going to have all this. Don't get caught up with that, guys. You have to understand that whatever you're putting your money to monthly, it must be paying back something to you. Whenever you're spending your money month and it's not paying anything back to you, it means you're not setting yourself up for retirement. I don't care whatever age you are, or it doesn't matter. The years go by really fast. And as the years are going by, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm now 35 years old. I don't even have a home. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to still keep paying rent? And even the people that are saying, oh, I don't want to buy anything or whatever it is, believe in me when I tell you they wish they'd buy something and they wish they owned something. So don't get caught up in paying rent for whatever you're paying rent for. Get caught up in buying and paying that monthly payment. Because you pay that monthly payment, two things is going to happen. The property is going to start to appreciate. And if you decide to make it into a rental property, you're going to be getting rental income. And guess what? You can always rent out different rooms. You could have a roommate. You'll be like, okay, I'm just using this side of the house. I'm going to rent that side of the house out. There's so much things that you could do. But don't get caught up with, houses are too expensive, interest rates are too high, all this stuff. That's what the landlord wants you to say. The landlord wants you to say, oh, I love renting here, I'll never leave. The landlord wants you to say that. The investors, equity funds, all these people who are building these big apartment complexes, they want you to come and never leave. Hello? Do you really want to be their customer? Do you want to be a consumer all the time? Because that makes you a consumer, right? And they're saying a lot of people are stuck in consumer mode. They just want to consume, just want to, just consume stuff. You don't want to do that. You do not want to be stuck in consumer mode. You want to be stuck in investment, doing investments. That's the mode you want to be stuck in, so that you are able to build better for your family, your children, even leave some generational wealth, right? So keep these things in mind. I know I went off on a rabbit track a while ago, but keep these things in mind. Again, my name is Sandy. Do follow our channel, because we're always putting out great videos. There's a phone number here or below that you could call, and guess what? You could call or text us, and you could make an appointment for us for a Zoom call. We do complimentary Zoom consultations all the time. If you're thinking of buying, you're not sure what to do, where to go, what's my credit score like? By the way, I'm also a licensed lender, just so you know, in Florida. So based upon what you're thinking or what you want to do, give us a call. Let us talk with you. Let us see what is your situation and how can you achieve buying a home. Maybe you could buy a home in 2025 early spring. Who knows, right? But there's always going to be a deal on the market. There's always going to be a motivated seller. And if you're a motivated buyer, all we need to do is match the two together, right? But don't not buy because of interest rate and all this great stuff, because that's what they want you to do. That's what the bigger people, quote unquote, they want you to be stuck in rental mode. Don't get stuck there, guys. Don't get stuck there. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.